What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Potion of Mastery, my little GM tabletop RPG corner of the internet where I try and help you improve your tabletop experience, whether you're a player or a GM. Most of my videos will be kind of geared towards GMs, but I hope that some of them also help players as well. So, yeah, as the title says, I'm going to explain to you essentially how I got into a problem and how I fixed it as a GM. Let's jump into it. A couple months ago now, I put out a post to my friends on Facebook asking if anybody wanted to do an in-person D&D campaign with absolutely no hopes of finding any game whatsoever. So I had absolutely no plans, no hopes, no nothing. After a couple days, with the post going uninteracted, I absolutely thought, yeah, there's no one interested. I'll just cut my losses and forget about it. After about a week or so, maybe a week and a half, I actually had a couple people start interacting with the post and hitting me up. And an old friend of mine actually reached out and said, hey, I have a group who would be more than happy to play D&D. And at that point, he had 5 players already, 6 with me. I included my girlfriend as well, making it 7. And then a couple days later, I also had another old friend and her boyfriend take interest, and they also joined the party, making it a total of 8 players versus 1 GM. And I have to admit, it's a little bit stressful. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to make a campaign about. So how did I go about creating a campaign at all? The first step was actually to create a session 0 where I got to meet the table, everybody got to get together, build their characters, we got to establish some rules, and then we also talked a little bit about the game. It was kind of quick, so we were actually short on players, so we just played a quick kind of one shot to help my girlfriend understand the rules a little bit more. Before session 0, I created a map. I started with just a map. I used Wonderdraft to draft the map. It generated procedurally a continent, which is what I told it to make. And I used that continent. I think it took a couple tries, but I eventually found one that I liked. And like, this is what we're going to do with it. And then I played around in Wonderdraft for probably 2.5 hours, just creating a very bare bones map with a couple significant points of interest on it, differentiating biomes within the continent, and creating a world for them to exist in. After that, I kind of wrote a quick quest for them to all meet together to accomplish, I didn't know how at this point I was bringing everybody together just yet. But I had the first quest kind of planned out, and I said this is kind of just a placeholder quest to get everybody connected. I'll worry about the rest of the campaign and the story later. It just so happens that this quest also tied into what I was making for my campaign. After the first week, after I got to meet everybody's characters, and there was one thing that I've never done before that I really, really wanted to do, and it was, I had these expectations from my players to create a great story and a great world, and bring fun entertainment to the table. And so, scrolling through YouTube, looking for advice on how to improve your D&D or your GMing abilities, I pulled together a bunch of homebrew rules. All my players like them. And we just have a lot of fun with it now. But back then I had no idea what I was doing. And so the one thing I hate the most, and you can call me a bad GM if you want, I didn't want them to create long backstories. I wanted to kind of get a brief summary of what their character has gone through in their life, maybe one trauma point, which is what most characters ended up doing. I actually have one player who didn't even make anything at all for a backstory. He was like, he's a pirate, the rest is yours. So I've just gone with it. And it's been lovely. I understand why players like to create the backstories, but sometimes it's better if the DM can kind of have a little bit of control and make your characters feel a part of their world. And I understand sometimes you have to work with your players and they have to work with you in order to incorporate certain aspects. And I've certainly done that with some of my players. The rest of them could have cared less, and they're like, take the wheel. We've wrote you maybe a paragraph. The rest is up to you. Have fun with it. And so I have been having fun with it. And with my players all being like that, I actually created the whole story. The whole campaign is based around my players. So if I accidentally kill one, I guess I'm I that's kind of where I'm at. Because then I have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. But I also don't want to pull my punches just because they're part of the story. They create the story. And that was an aspect I really wanted to focus on. So then after I created the map, after I've created the story, well, actually, before I started creating the story, I created an antagonist. I ran a couple names past my girlfriend. She's like, it's kind of ironic. I kind of like it. Just do what you want. It's your campaign. And I was like, okay. I ended up keeping one of the names and changing the second name, and ended up creating kind of two antagonists. The second antagonist is kind of like an underling to the first antagonist. And I guess realistically, I've kind of created three at this point without even realizing it, just based off of one of my players' races. She plays a Kalashtar, and my understanding of the races, they kind of have two souls. One is from the dream realm, one makes them human. And when you combine them into one body, it creates a Kalashtar. That's just my understanding. I could be completely wrong. I skimmed Kalastars very briefly. I've played one before, but not super in depth like she will be playing, so I hope this doesn't ruin her experience on Kalashtar. But yeah, all my players have a reason to be in the campaign. There is one exception, but I've kind of given him a cop out. He is one of the newer players, but I'm totally okay with it. And I hope, he just has fun along the way. So I created antagonists. They didn't have a story. They didn't have anything. When my players left their backstories so open-ended with a little bit of background information about their character, I just took the wheel and went with it. For example, the main antagonist actually has connections to and has met several of my players' characters in the past. He's strategically crafted this group to meet so that they can complete a task for him. And so the first quest that I said I made, actually I was able to tie that into his grand scheme. It was the way to bring the group together and also introduce who they think is the first antagonist, or the main antagonist, which she's not the main antagonist. I mean, neither is the master antagonists. But anyways, it's a whole nother story. Um, but all this to say, I was backed into a corner. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had 3 weeks to do it, 3 weeks to come up with a general idea, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was kind of like, yeah, let's meet this Saturday. And I was like, can we do a session 0 on Saturday? Because I have nothing planned. And then I just planned an entire campaign in we've been playing for about 2 months now, since late August. So I hope that kind of helps. I started with a map of a continent. I just threw something together, and then I created potential antagonists. I created a couple characters. I was like, these would make great antagonists. And then after a session 0, seeing people make their characters, getting a little bit of back story from my players, I was able to carefully craft a story around my characters, and that's kind of what my goal was to create a story for my characters, and one that they can feel like they've crafted themselves. And not all campaigns have to be like this. I've done 3 years prior to this. I've done 3 years worth of campaigns, very long, lengthy campaigns. I used to do it like 3 times a week, some weeks, for a little bit. And it burned me out. I'm not going to lie. It did burn me out. But at the same time, it was good experience. I had good stories. It just, the characters weren't crafting the story, I guess. They were just playing the story. And that's one thing I kind of wanted to leave with this in-person game, is I wanted to leave my players more decisions. I don't want to say, no, you can't do that. You need to do this specific task. I want them to feel like, nah, we're going to rip up the quest that you just gave us that apparently pays us 60 gold each. And we're going to go do this other thing as a group, even though we barely know each other. We've done one thing together, and we got tons of free beer. That's kind of what the session's been, and thankfully they didn't rip up the the quest, and they did play into it, but because I had nothing planned if they didn't take it. But if they chose not to take that quest, I would have made up something and guided them to a different approach of getting to that same spot. In my next video, I want to talk a little more about pacing your campaigns. It's one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot on here, on YouTube, and I feel like it's one of the things I struggle with the most, and I would like to help other people not struggle with it. So I would be, that's one of my next video ideas. For right now, I think I'm going to do behind my GM screen video, and then we'll work our way up to those more complex topics. And they're very hard to talk about too, which is what makes them complex, and I'm totally okay with eventually. My goal on this channel is to help you guys, the viewers, become better GMs. And I want to talk about some homebrew rules that we've implemented into my game, and some fun mechanics that we've brought to the table that spices up the game a little bit. So I think that's all I got for today. That's how I got into a campaign unprepared, and I've come out more prepared than probably any other campaign I've ever run. So we'll also talk about the tools that I use for running my campaigns in another video. And if you guys enjoyed this, I'd appreciate you giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, because there will be more videos. There will be at least one video a week is my goal. And yeah, leave a comment for algorithm support. If you don't have anything to say, anything to comment about, go ahead and leave your favorite emoji in the comments below, because you know it helps the algorithm, and I'm trying to grow. I'm actually trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, by December 31st, 2024, before 2025 begins. So without any further ado, I'll see you guys in the next Potion of Mastery. Peace.